is a joint committee meeting, and the members of each one of those, Mr. Vontae is the chairman of the finance. Mr. Trey Britt, Mr. Terry is virtual. Mr. Craig Lowry is here. And then for the construction, myself, I'm the chairman, Mr. Henry Brewer, Melissa Ocean, and Trey Britt are also on that. So in opening, it's got me to do the invocation, so let us pray. Dear grace, kind Heavenly Father, thank you once again for giving us opportunity, dear Heavenly Father, to come and discuss the finances and the construction of the public schools of Robeson County. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask your will, that you lead, guide us, and direct us. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for your mercy, grace, and love. Protect us as only you can, dear Heavenly Father. We ask this in Jesus Christ's holy name. Amen. Amen. And I asked Mr. Bobby, and him, Miss Erica, are going to work together on this. Let's go through the 22-23 proposed capital outlay projects updates, and we'll start with the paving of. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't even see this. All right. Let's start here. 2022 proposed capital outlay projects update. Oh, I'm sorry. SFLNA. We're going to start with that.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
It's on. Hi, my name is Michael Holborn. I'm project manager with SFLA Architects. I'm extremely excited to be here today, discuss with you this amazing project. Before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what this project is, I recently had a child 4 months ago, my second child, a little girl, and I've got a 2-year-old boy. And I think, from that has really changed my perspective on what it is we do here and the importance of it. I really am thinking about my kids' futures and the opportunities that they're going to have. And, it's difficult decisions that this board has made and is going to make moving forward that has such an effect on children, potentially like mine. And, I have to say, I've never worked with a better board before, and the decisions you guys have made on this project to look at, what is absolutely necessary, what needs to be in this project, what doesn't need to be in the project, to really make it the best project for, the children of Robeson County. And it is just such a blessing that I get the opportunity to work with, folks like yourselves on such an important project. And, I just hope, that my district has, people as wise as you working on projects for my children's future, because it is amazing the work that is going on here. And I have to start by saying thank you. It really gives me a lot of hope, for my own children and for seeing projects like this. So with that, we could go to, is there like a full screen view on this? So we're here to talk about the Robeson Career and Technical Education Center, Planetarium and Science Center. What you're seeing here is an initial rendering. We're obviously still in the design process, so we're working through design elements. But here is a initial look at what the front of the building will look like. Can you go to the next slide, please? So I'd like to talk schedule with everyone real quick. So we are currently working on the design development package. We are going to be releasing that package on March 10th. We will be issuing that package to DPI and DOI as well for their review to get their comments. We've already received DPI comments from the schematic design package and have responded to those. The next package that we're looking at issuing is an early partial site package, potentially a full site package. We're still kind of working through the details. We actually have Jonathan Locklear from LL&J Civil Engineer to answer any questions potentially that you all might have about what it means to issue an early kind of civil package. I can briefly just explain. So working with the general contractor and looking at, when construction start dates are, the soils are better to start pushing around more towards summertime than it is in the wintertime. And so by releasing this early package, we can get it out to bid earlier and get, dirt moving sooner when the conditions are more favorable. And so while that work is going on, we will continue to design the building. And I don't know, is there anything you want to kind of add to that, Jonathan, or anything we're kind of working towards? Does anybody have any questions about what it means to sort of issue that early civil package? Or why we're kind of doing that? Okay. So then we will continue working through design. We'll hit a 50% construction document milestone. That's another one we will get in front of your group, receive any comments, and then we will issue final. That'll happen on May 5th, and then final 100% construction documents will be issued June 30th. At that point, we will submit them to the local agencies for review. We have in the schedule about 2.5 months for that process. It's usually about that. Then it can go to bid. That process, we have just under 2 months for that process. Once we receive all the bidding back on November 3rd, then it would go to the board to review those bids. And there's a 2-week process for that. And then assuming all goes well and everything's approved, we start full construction on November 20th. And then construction is just short of 2 years. So we would finish up the construction complete dates, we're saying July of 25, but there's always that sort of period where the building is kind of done and you're moving in and all of that kind of stuff. But as we move forward with MetCon, they will provide a more detailed construction schedule. But generally, you can expect that the building is going to be open in that July of 25 timeframe. Any questions about schedule or any of these submissions that we have? Sure.
Hit your mic.
About this input from instructors and even the general public. Now that the initial plan has been submitted, laid out for any additions, tweaks, redesigns, and obviously coming up on the complete date of design development in just about 3 weeks, looks like. Has that been done in a uniform, aggressive type of way, or what has happened with that, if anything, in terms of soliciting input from the general public and the instructional personnel?
So we did visit the existing career center, and we did walk through that, looked at what the existing spaces are, and to understand, the needs of some of the teachers and the students and kind of how those programs operate, with the understanding that we are taking this to the next level, as well. That we're not just going to do things the way they're currently happening. We're taking that as a base and then expanding upon that. So we've done those visits. We're working with our engineers and vendors to understand kind of what the future of these educational programs are, and what equipment and strategies are. But those conversations will be ongoing through to the 100% CD mark. I mean, I know it says design development, but doesn't mean those conversations can't continue, and they will continue as we keep refining the project.
Up to and including projecting additional space for future enrollment. We're hopeful that more and more students will enroll in these career technical education programs. And so that's been taken into consideration too in terms of.
You talking about like for future growth, you mean?
Yes, well, even including square footage and that kind of thing, with the anticipation of additional enrollment that we're hopeful will take place over the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, we worked through initial programming, and we looked at current enrollment numbers for I forget how many years it was, the last so many years, and then looking at projected growth, and then basically sizing the program of the spaces and providing those programs based on kind of that projected growth. You know, you are limited somewhat to what the state allows for, like how many, you can't put like 50 welding students in a classroom, right? Because you can't kind of control, it's a lot to kind of watch over. So we had some limitations we had to pay attention to, but yes, the idea is that we're looking at, you know, there's enough capacity there for the future.
Thank you.
My question, Mr. Chair, if I may, my question is, we're looking at phase 1 and phase 2 and looking at the completion dates here. Is this a composite or is this just phase 1?
So we're designing this project, we're designing both. So when you see our design development package come out, we are documenting both phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time. It just makes sense to kind of design it all as one. Now, ultimately, you know, the decision about phase 1, doing both phases or doing one phase, hasn't been, you know, official yet if we're doing phase 2 yet. But we are documenting both, so that way, whatever decision is, we're good to go. And if it is phase 1 that is decided, you have phase 2 that in the future, if you raise funds, the documents are pretty much there for you. So.
So is it fair to say that by July 2025, hopefully we'll be through with phase 2?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that. But you know, I think the phasing question is I think really for the board to ultimately make that decision. You know, looking at budgets and all of that.
Chair, if I may, please. But I want to go back to Mr. Gentry and his question, and Mike helped me, and Bobby, keep in mind, at the Career Center now, we're serving probably 475 kids. The way that this building is designed, intentionally, we will be able to serve 1,000 kids. And so automatically, we're going to double the number of kids, and that gives us time in terms of expansion of the program. And the building is designed that we can add on. The limitation, again, would be the site and what we can do with that. And then the question around phase 2, if you remember, what do we have, 65 million for phase 1 plus, and Mike's going to share because of the way that we've managed the programs, that we've involved everyone and did not include programs that was not relevant, that we did not need. So phase 2 cost has really been cut in half. And Mike, you talk about that. So it really becomes more affordable because we can apply for the needs-based grant again this year that hopefully will give us the money to do what you just said, complete the project.
Yeah, and that goes back, thank you, Dr. Williams. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, making those tough decisions as a board and really understanding the program. I mean, it's easy to kind of go in and say, well, I want this and I want that. And you know, you kind of add everything and then you get to it and you have half the money you need to build that. This group amazingly did the opposite of that. Not really the opposite, but really refined the program down. So essentially what was happening was we have the grant money for phase 1. So we know how much square footage and you know, money we have allotted for that. So as the programs were refined, we kept being able to shift more programs into phase 1, which essentially guarantees that they're going to get built. And so, you know, the original phase 2 grant, I believe, forgive me on my numbers, I want to say it was 35 million, something like that. And the estimate we got from Metcon for SDs was right around, I think it was like 16 million. And a lot of that is due to the fact that we've, reduced programs down and been able to shift all of that into phase 1. So it really, it makes phase 2 a much more attainable goal with its size at this point. And the way we're designing it is, you'll see from the plans, we've been very strategic about how that would work to make it affordable. So you're not adding a weird wing. It's going to feel seamless.
It was on there first. Get me, sir. Okay.
Okay, it's on. Okay. Dr. Williamson, I think, answered my question. I just wanted to say at this point, to reiterate, we don't currently have funding to complete phase 2. As he indicated, we would love to apply for the another needs-based grant and have those funds in place. So as we talked about it being a seamless transition between both, but at the time, we don't currently have enough funding to proceed with phase 2. So today, we will not have both phases unless something happens within the next year before completion of the project, that those funds have been awarded to us.
Two questions, and I just waited. Let me go back. When, as far as actually, as we said, moving dirt, when could that start based on this timeline? Is that the 50%, or is that the?
So the early site package would have to go out to the local agencies, probably 60, 75 days for that review. And then it's got to go to bid. And then, so we're talking probably be late summer, right?
Okay.
Probably somewhere in there is probably when, this would, I'd have to verify with the general contractor on this, because it's more of their realm, but I would say we're moving dirt like sometime, summertime, late summer.
And the follow-up was what we had talked about, and might be for you. We had discussed about possible entrance off of 7-Eleven. Any indication of where that's at now? I know we got the road behind Livermore, but any indication of where there's a possibility of having an entrance off of 7-Eleven also?
Did you want to come up here and talk through that?
Jonathan Locklear, LO&J. I'll answer the question about that. You did exactly what I wanted you to do, Michael. What we did was early on when we first got this project, I vetted this with the local NCDOT maintenance department with Mr. Bryce Bell and his team. He talked to his advisor up in Fayetteville. And back when Grady was still on your council, we talked about this as well. And Grady's still on the board. So about 2 weeks ago, we had a conference call with Grady. I brought Bryce over into the office and we went over this again. At this point, the DOT we initially had a plan, I don't know if you remember or not, but we had an entrance that was sort of shown. The bottom of your screen is 7-Eleven. We had an entrance drive right there. And he said, there's no way we're going to give you an entrance drive at that point. So the next thing we looked at is potentially doing one where 7 Hawks is out on 7-Eleven, if you're familiar with that. And that was something they were willing to entertain, but there was a lot more involved to get to that point. So at that point, I was talking to, we're on Livermore Drive here inside of the Comtech Park, which the state owns Livermore. So where we're at right now is we're laying this out as if in the future we can access 7-Eleven, because at the tail end, which would be to your far left on the screen, we would look at that point coming straight up or straight down to 7-Eleven. You can barely tell it on here, but I would hit it 7 Hawks Drive there. And as for right now, that's not part of our project, because you're probably talking another $500 to $1 million to make that possible, not including all the other amenities that the DOT would want you to do. Because we're probably gonna have to have a traffic study and some other things to go on there. So when I was talking to Grady is on the NCDOT advisory board, we talked about this, and my game plan is right now, this is still a little off, but when we showed this to Grady the first time, the talk about this, he said, look, we need an access point at either end of the school. We need that two at the back at the here. So what I would try to do is, Jonathan, if you would get me a layout, he's gonna take that to their board and talk to them about potentially having the DOT install that for the school. I don't have confirmation on that right now, but that's the game plan. No access point right now on 7-Eleven, but everybody knows that there's a need for that. We just don't have the funding for that right now. So we're pushing in that direction, and it's gonna take some political pull too. You know, it's not like anything else we've got going on. We're gonna have to get some political push to make that happen if you want to get funding for that.
Jonathan, so just for information, all of this will be state maintained roads, correct? So we won't have an investment the way it's set up now for the back entrance, correct?
Theoretically, again, we don't get to do a lot of road improvements through the school system. You know, we're just normally accessing driveways and whatnot. How this works is, Dr. Williamson, is you come in and you put the infrastructure in, and then DOT takes it over after they approve it, if it's put in. Now, there's a lot of work that goes in during the construction phase of testing and making sure it meets their standards and some other stuff, hoops and hurdles and paperwork that you have to jump through. But on a project of this magnitude and it being in the Comtech Park, we're trying to work this such that the DOT does all of this initial work for us. Because I don't know if you noticed or not, but to the right-hand side of the drawing that you're looking at on screen, that little channel that's between Native Angels and your property, that's what we call a blue line stream. So the pavement stops to the right-hand side of the sheet. In order to cross that blue line stream, we got to get a what's called a 401D wetlands permit. That's a year to a year and a half just to get that permitted. I've talked to DOT. How we're going to work around that is we're going to use the drive that's there now that we use for the groundbreaking ceremony as our construction entrance. And again, hopefully DOT is going to take that entire part, do the design, do the implementation of that entire street. Or I do the design, and then they take it and build it. So we're working through the weeds on that right now, but we do have access to the construction side, so it won't hold up our moving forward with starting to turn some dirt this summer on this project. I want to go back to one other thing you asked about, Mr. Craig. That's what I just hit on the early construction package. The biggest problem we have in Robeson County is that we're flat. Everybody thinks that's a good thing, but as we all know, we've lived through the couple 1,000-year storm events we recently had. Flat is not always good. And the biggest problem we're going to have on our site is moving, we got a 35-acre site, is moving stormwater from one point A to point B to get it away from our building and over to somewhere where we can safely release it off site. Now, our design is for a 10, maybe a 20-year storm event, depending on where we're at. We can't afford to design for a 1,000-year storm. So if we get a 1,000-year storm, you're going to have water on that side. That's a given. I said that to say this. Our water table out there right now is anywhere from 2 to 4 feet below the ground. I think that's what the last borings we got done over by where we're looking to put the bar pit at. It's 2 to 4 feet. So what's going to have to take place is they're going to have to dig that side up, take that dirt out of the ground and set it somewhere where it can start to dry out for us to even be able to use it. So even if they went out there today and started digging up the soil, they would have to set it to the side and keep going out there, turning it and working it until we can get some usable material. So it's a progress, but or a work in progress. But we're at that point now where we're trying to push this through as fast as we can. And all the permitting process we've got to go through DPI, through the state, through DOT, through the Corps of Engineers. There is no fast tracking any of this. I mean, we send it in and we sit and wait. Could be 4 weeks if we're lucky, could be 6 weeks. So we're talking about when we release that package, it's all dependent upon them and the comments they come back to us with. So that's where we're at on that.
So the initial access egress road will be where to start off with? It's not a possibility to access from 7-Eleven at this point. So where will that be?
Our temporary construction entrance will be at the entrance drive where we had the groundbreaking ceremony yet. I think there's still a sign standing up there. And I don't know who put that pipe in or who put that driveway in, but it's not a permitted driveway. Talked to Bryce about it, and he's going to allow us to use that. At any time the DOT wanted to, they could go through there and take that pipe out and that road. They're willing to work with us to use that access point for right now. It's not a permitted access drive. You know, farmers get away with a lot of things. I don't know if they put that in or who put that drive in, but normally agriculture use, you don't have to permit a drive. For the traffic count we're going to have on there, that's got to be a permitted drive. But they're not going to let us permit that particular drive. So that will be our access point for construction. Just a regular public and people coming to the site, I would still say Livermore is going to be your access point. And again, crossing over that stream at the back side of this is going to be something we're going to have to address sooner rather than later.
But the timing will be such that when it's ready to be occupied and utilized, all the permits and the egress access officially will be in place.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. We have to get that done. Yes.
Mr. Ernie, you want to add anything to the conversation? Because I think you and your guys put that drive in for us.
Okay, is everybody good? And I just want to make a comment on the phase one part. For me and the board at this point, that's what we should be concerned about, getting phase one up, going, finished before we even really discuss phase two. But if we can get monies for phase two in the process, it'll be sitting there waiting. I mean, this phase one is what we're most concerned about. And the thing with Mr. Locklear here, if it's like, you're kind of at their mercy. When state DOT and Corps engineers and all that, you're at their mercy. Where they say it goes is where it goes. So pretty much. But I do understand we have Mr. Grady.
Yes, sir. I've been riding him hard. Even though he's off the board, he's still on retainer.
Oh, I'm a get him.
If that's that pro bono work he's doing for the school right now. I got one other comment I just want to leave all of you with. We've been working to try to get natural gas down at Comtech Park for the last longest. I think I sent out an email to most of the people in the room that's been involved in this. Piedmont Natural Gas works about like all the other big utility companies. They move at their own pace. So if there's anybody that you know that you can call that's with Piedmont Natural Gas to sort of put a bug in their ear to try to help them push forward to get us gas to this school, it would be much appreciated. I've asked around, I've talked to the town, I've sent it over to the tribe, I've sent it to the people on the school board, or at least the people that have been involved with our conversation about this. I don't know that I have everybody's email address on this, but there's a chain going around, and I think Mr. Bobby and Dr. Williamson have that. So by all means, if you know anybody that's at Piedmont Natural Gas, we need some help to push that project along, to get gas to the school.
there any other questions about site stuff, or should we go back to the program? Can you flip back to, yeah, we'll start with, go to the next page. We'll start here. If you would like to, would you like to go through the program document here? So not much has changed since the schematic design narrative on this. You know, you're going to see little numbers change here and there, but basically the program has been set. You know, kind of again, going back, there was a lot of work done early on to really refine this program. I don't know if you really want to get into detail on any of these, but this just really breaks down kind of every space program-wise that's in the building, and it's, you know, just organized by division. So you have like the admin area, and then can you scroll down a little bit to the classrooms? You know, one thing that changed is after our visit to the Career Center, we merged material and parts storage room for the automotive program. It just made sense. You actually get more space out of it. So there's little things like that that have tweaked based on our visit, but for the most part, it's stayed about the same. Can you scroll to the next page, please? Just keep moving, keep scrolling down. Okay, and we'll stop here. So what you're seeing here at the bottom is our phase one net total. So our net total is about the same as what we had before. The gross has gone up just shy of 4,000 square feet. And one of the things that I will show you later in the plans is we've added a mechanical mezzanine, and that's what accounts for that space. Now, not all square feet is created the same, as you well know. Mechanical mezzanine space is very, very inexpensive compared to, you know, say a planetarium space, for instance, or an auto shop. So the design of the project has a single slope roof, and so it created this beautiful little interstitial space that we could take advantage of. So instead of expanding the building out and having to pay for exterior wall and more roof and more foundations, we actually have put most of the mechanical systems up in this mezzanine, in this interstitial space that essentially was unused space anyways. We do have to pay for a little bit of floor and some structure for that and some walls, but it's pretty inexpensive space. It does skew this number a little bit. It does show much more square footage, but, you know, ultimately, you know, it'll come down to what the budget is, and the budget's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be reflective that we've added truly 4,000 square feet of expensive, you know, space or anything. It's basically half the cost. So that's the one difference you'll see there. You know, our phase one gross that we were shooting for was basically 90,000, and we're at 94,426. But again, that was really the addition of that mezzanine space. But we will work with Metcon to understand what that means to the budget, and, you know, ultimately it comes down to what the budget is and hitting that number, which is our responsibility, and we will hit it without question. And then if you look at phase two, so you saw how there's pages and pages of rooms for phase one, and then here's phase two. That is all we have currently in phase two right now. You know, the board did such an amazing job to push so much into phase one that, I mean, you're getting most of your school. It's done. It's part of the original grant. I mean, we are moving forward with it. So what we have here in phase two is we have 2 industry and business labs. Sorry, we have 4. No, sorry, we have 2 of those. I have the numbers wrong on that. Because we're splitting one in half. But then we have 2 mechatronics classrooms, and that's pretty much it. The cosmetology was removed, which you can see there. And so ultimately what we have is there's a little bit of collaboration, an instructional workroom, and then like an MDF, which is like your data kind of closet essentially. But that's pretty much it. So really you're looking at 20,000 square feet gross total, which is almost exactly what we had at schematic design. So I really don't see the budget if we look at that. I mean, Metcon's they will work on a design development budget once we issue that submission, but ultimately, we haven't changed phase 2 at all. So if you look at the schematic design budget, it's probably going to be pretty consistent with where we're at. And so total, the building is gross about 114,462 square feet if you do both phases. And is there any questions about program? I know I kind of went through that, but is there any particular questions about any programs or spaces or sizes of spaces or anything like that that anybody has questions on?
What method was used to determine the allotted square footage for each of the programs? Was there a composite survey done with other career centers to determine what an average workable square footage would be for each area?
Yeah, you kind of look at, how many students you can have, that's max allowed. And then TPI has standards that they provide for some of these spaces. And then looking at current space, and trying to understand what that means. So it's sort of a lot of factors that play into that to understand, how big an auto shop needs to be, things like that, And it's also determined on, we're still working through what exactly the equipment is that's going to go in each space. There's a lot of it, so it's going to take us a little bit. But as we start laying that out, but for instance, it was determined early on that the automotive shop would have 2 car lifts, essentially, right? So we could put those in place, know how much space that takes. We have a third bay that's probably going to be used more for alignments, things like that. It's more of a flat bay. So based on those kinds of requirements where you kind of know, if it was told to us, hey, we need 6 lifts, obviously we're going to have a larger shop. So we kind of sized a lot of the stuff based on, what we knew some of the programmatic needs were going to be. Any other questions on the program? It's a lot of numbers. So, all right, if we could go to the next page then. So just scroll down a little bit just so we see yeah, there we go. I'll just brief on this really quickly. So you can see in the center there, it says proposed building. That would be your school. And then just above that, we have this outdoor paved area, and it's really for deliveries for materials. So along that whole top of the building there is where all our shops are going to be. So automotive, carpentry, masonry, all that. And so that concrete paved area will be used for storage, deliveries, stuff of that nature. There's going to be a large 20-foot deep canopy that is tall enough to fit even a semi-truck underneath. So they can get deliveries from any method. But it also will provide them with some covered outdoor space to be able to work, store materials, things like that. To the left of the building, we have a telescope viewing pad. So it's kind of hard to tell, but south is actually sort of to the upper left of the screen. Mr. Brandt can probably speak to this much, much better than I can, but typically when you want to view a telescope, so you're typically looking south, at least where we are in the world. And so this actually will provide a great viewing location for any nighttime events where we have telescopes, things like that, to get a nice clear view from the horizon line on up. And then to the right of the screen, you see there's a large drone area with like a little bit of a viewing pad. That's just for the students to do their drone flight, stuff like that. And then actually going back just to the left of the building, there's the home project where, the students build a house, which is still mind-boggling to me. Students can build a house. It's an amazing skill to have. So we have set aside that area where they can construct the home project. Sort of to the bottom left of the building, there's bus parking for 14 buses, which is a separated kind of its own loop. And then we have student and teacher parking currently kind of around the rest. And then kind of closer to the building, it's somewhat separated, but that could be, you could sort of identify that more as like public parking potentially if you wanted it for the Science Center and planetarium. But we can discuss on if you really need to like segregate parking or let people park there. And then, so we have this large loop. You would come in off Livermore from the right, so that's where Comtech Park is. And then the idea is that first entrance, it directs you to where the cars go, and that's just to keep people from trying to drive through the bus loop and all that. So this plan also puts the bus loop you have to kind of go around the back of the building and then in, really just sort of discourage people from trying to use that bus loop as a drop off or anything like that. Any questions about kind of generally?
I was just thinking, the drone area, what size is that pad?
Oh, I don't know. To be honest with you, it's not like, we sort of zoned it out, but like, it's not
I was
actually
just wondering if
anything.
maybe we could handshake with the state and incorporate emergency services to land there also. And that would enhance the ideology of entering 7-Eleven to the parking lot. But that would be a political strategy to reach out.
So that drone area is just a grassy area. I mean, it's not actually like a paved area or anything. The little like rectangle box that comes down off the sidewalk, that's your sort of viewing area that'll be paved for the class to be able to stand there and watch. That drone area, we're really just sort of identifying like, here's where you could fly, but it's not actually anything we're going to be building. So you could identify that as a landing spot. I mean, it would be good for that actually. Are there any other questions about the site plan? Okay, if not, go to the next page, please. All right. So can you scroll down just a little bit more? All right, right there, perfect. So what we have here, this is phase 1, level 1. And I know the rooms are really, really small and impossible to read even on the printout. But what you're seeing, so in orange, that circular area and the orange area to the left, so the circular area is your planetarium, and the rectangular space to the left is your Science Center and Makerspace. The pink area is your admin wing. The yellow in between the pink and the orange would be your main entrance for the school. And then the yellow that's sort of just beyond the doors is your student gallery. And that's all glass walls on both sides. If you kind of look at the front image on the front of your packet, you'll see that there's glass walls on both sides of the cylinder. And what that's going to do is, that gallery the idea of that gallery is that's for student work. So whether you build an engine or there's going to be a digital display board. So if you're in a graphics program, you can have your graphics displayed, or you build something in the carpentry class, we can display it there because I think displaying the students' work is really, really, really important, right? It's going to give them pride in their work, and it's going to pride in the community, right? The community can come by here and see what their amazing children are doing. I went to architecture school. We built models all the time through the wee hours of the night. And one of the best things was putting it in a gallery and displaying and getting to show off being proud of your work. And so putting that front and center at the front entrance where every student can walk by and also see what other students are doing. If I'm in the drone course, but I see somebody build an engine, it might start a conversation that then leads to some crazy drone thing or some other, where they come together. And it's that transparency between programs that I think is important. So we really are trying to highlight, being able to showcase students' work in this project. And then to the left of the cylinder, you see there's another entrance into that. So we do have a public entrance, which is in the orange for the Science Center and planetarium, and then the yellow entrance is just for the school. So we are separating from a security standpoint those two entrances. The area in the center, which is sort of that greenish color, that's our learning commons. That's where classrooms can come and they can have, students can come out, like break out into groups and they can work together on projects, things like that, not in their classroom. They can kind of break out into this open space. Creates a very collaborative learning environment. So all the blue space to the top of the page, just plan north of that like green area, those are all your major shops. So you have automotive, masonry, welding, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, and I feel like I'm missing one. And what you're seeing is, actually, can I have you zoom in? I know it's kind of a pain. The blue kind of diagonal wall, just anywhere on, like in there. Yeah, can you keep zooming in? Go a little bit further for me, please. Yeah, then can you just kind of scroll it over? And then down just a touch. All right, perfect. So we'll use carpentry as an example here in the center. So you've got your large carpentry shop. You can see it's got an egress door on the back, and then there's a roll-up door, so you can get materials in that. You can see the 20-foot deep canopy on the back there, so there's a lot of outdoor either workspace or material storage. You can see that they have a tool storage and a material storage room. But then the classroom, and this is really, the important thing, and you can see every one of these programs has the same kind of setup. What we're doing is we have a regular door to get in and out of the classroom between the shop, but the kind of wide, looks like, thin door with the two kind of sides on it in the middle of the classroom, those are going to be glass vertical folding doors that fold up into the ceiling. And the idea is that, it creates transparency throughout the school. So as you're walking by, you can see straight through the classroom and straight into the shop and see all the work that's going on. So again, any of the students anywhere can see what the other students are working on and hopefully create kind of some of that cross-pollination of ideas. It also, because they're fold-up doors, if I build a big display thing in carpentry and I want to move it out into the central space, those doors roll up and you can move it straight from the shop through the classroom and over to the gallery or even in the learning commons, things like that. If the teachers are having these sort of breakout group working sessions, you could roll up the door between the learning commons and the classroom and have just sort of that open space to let the students kind of move around and work and find their space where they're comfortable to work. So one of the difficulties we have found with a lot of career and technical schools is transparency, right? These are very noisy, loud spaces. And so what we have done is we've used the classroom as sort of that acoustic buffer, but by putting in those glass folding doors, you keep that transparency all the way back to the shop. And we think it's pretty key to the experience of this project, is keeping that transparency and seeing what everybody's being able to work on. And then honestly, from a practical standpoint, it's also a safety thing. I mean, really, if you think about it, if you're a principal, you can walk around the school and see into every space without having to walk into every shop. So are there any questions about kind of this shop layout or what it is we're trying to work on here?
Looking back at the previous page with the site plan.
Sure.
I don't know if it was intentional or not, but do we have outside lighting incorporated into the plan?
Yeah. So we'll have parking lot lighting, and then the telescope viewing pad area will have bollards that will lead you out to there, since those things will happen at night, obviously. And then the building will be exterior lit as well. So yes, we have that.
I know there are advantages to having the classrooms with access one to another without having to go back out into the main corridor and then access another classroom separately. However, and you mentioned principal accessing or whoever may be observing, there may be some situations where collaboration and that kind of thing taking place, it would be advantageous to have access from one classroom to another within, i.e. a door leading to and from. I don't see that. Maybe I'm missing that, but
You're talking about between the classrooms?
between the classrooms themselves, yes.
I mean, I think for programs like these, it would have to be a pretty much like a set thing, and then you'd want to probably go into a shop, I would imagine. And then at that point, you're kind of just gathering. I think you're deciding which shop or where it would be. Because I think, really, they spend most of their time in the shops. And so, are you talking about like trying to put the classrooms side by side then?
Yes, the classrooms, as I'm viewing it, if I'm viewing it correctly, I don't see doors that allow access between and among the individual shops. For example, carpentry going into masonry. I'm just using that as an example. And I realize that there's some reasons not to have that as well. I understand that. But was there a thought process in not having that?
So we didn't, mainly because we really didn't want like students kind of wandering between shops. Mainly because like, if you're in the masonry class, you know the dangers within that masonry shop, you've been trained. And so having somebody from plumbing come over to masonry, like wandering over to hang out with a friend, was a concern. I think you can, if you're going to have like, say plumbing and masonry having a class together, or masonry and carpentry or something, because they're working on a dual project, I think they could just set up a time to happen in the shop. But, like for instance, like welding and carpentry, I don't really want a carpentry student moving into the welding, mainly because they don't have the mask and the eye protection, that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of the reason to not have that. Is it was felt that if you're going to have that kind of collaborative, between classes, that it would happen at a particular like location, and then that you would almost just have class there, and you wouldn't need that kind of connecting door. And so, but for security reasons, like not having it, and then also acoustic reasons, it's pretty difficult to keep these spaces isolated from each other.
Well, you cited some good examples to have it like it is, and especially this type of environment. So
yeah, it's difficult because typically in other classrooms, in say a standard, say high school, yes, you would have like those connections across, but here it's a bit of a different kind of program.
Right.
And Mike, and also Mr. Gentry, not indicated here, we will have equipment and different things lined against the wall.
Yes.
So that would prevent us from having doors from one room to the next room. Say welding, you may have the bays lined up all against all of the walls. So that's one of the reasons you wouldn't see doors from one classroom to the next.
Okay, can you just go back to the full page? So those are our major shop programs on the back there, where we have the large paved area and the canopy. To the upper right, the blue, that is our culinary arts. We have our large kitchen and classroom there. The sort of greenish area in front of that is our culinary dining. So if they do hold a dining service, and they can do that, that is the space that will be allocated for that. And then your two blue spaces on the bottom is your EMS class and your drone technology. And can we go to the next page? So staying in phase one, but looking at the second floor, because of the single slope roof, what that does is we actually don't have a second floor on the top part of the building that you're seeing here. That gray bar that's running across all those shops, that is that added mezzanine space that we talked about that's sort of squeezing above the classrooms for the shops between the roof and that, where we could fit all the mechanical equipment. What's great about that is from that equipment, instead of running ducts all through the building, it runs into the shop, into the classroom, and into the learning commons, and that is it. So it's really efficient. You're not having long duct runs anywhere. I mean, from that one location, we're hitting all of your major spaces in that portion of the building. So that's the other reason why we wanted to add that mezzanine, is we're using square footage that is otherwise kind of not usable space. And it also makes the mechanical equipment very efficient. You know, we're working with the egress and stuff like that to make it easy to access and replace equipment inside the building. So what you're seeing here on the bottom part, on the bottom left there is your drafting and engineering classroom. And then you have a graphics classroom. So the four kind of blue spaces is graphics, computer engineering, network engineering, and then between those two is a lab that those two classrooms would share. And then the green area in that oval space is the career center. And then there's some collaboration areas even upstairs there that you're seeing. We also have this learning stair, which we find is pretty critical. A lot of students love kind of sitting on this stair and working on projects together. So that's what you're seeing next to the large oval. But that's your second floor for phase one. Any questions about this second floor? Basically, it's your you know, more computer type classrooms. Can we go to the next page? So probably should have put in like a line or something to really denote, but if you kind of look at the difference, so that stair that you're seeing that's on the bottom, kind of towards the right, that stair is sort of the edge of the phase one plan. So everything to the right of that is our phase two, which really is what you see is on the bottom right is a mechatronics classroom. There's one on the first floor and one on the second floor. And then the two large rooms to the upper right, one of them is divided by a movable partition, but it's one space. Those are your industry business labs. So the benefit of those is they're on the back of the building. So again, they would have the same covered canopy, roll-up doors so they can roll in equipment. So if you get somebody that wants to do training on their equipment, they could roll their equipment in and set it up there. There's a little bit of a collab space in that central zone. But really, if you kind of see the two big boxes up top and the one big box on the bottom, kind of that, if you sort of draw an L between them or a Z, that's your phase two, essentially. And that's kind of, we were able to push every other program into phase one, which is amazing. So then can we go to the next page, please? And then upstairs, the only thing we have up here that's a phase two specific item is that one mechatronics classroom on the bottom right of the plan. So yeah, you can kind of see the line in that beige area. Where that line is, everything to the right of that is new. Everything else is all part of phase one. Any questions on phase one versus phase two, kind of how we're separating those spaces out? Okay. Now for the fun part, the pretty pictures that architects love. So we'll run through these. So this is the same photo that's on the cover. So what you're seeing here on the left-hand side is your science center. That's that brick box area with the glass kind of on the left side. The glass just to the left of the cylinder is your entrance to the Planetarium and Science Center and that main lobby space. That cylinder is your planetarium. And then to the right of that, you see an entrance. That's the entrance to the high school. There's sort of that white rectangle box, that's your drafting and engineering classroom. And then you see there's a sawtooth design. Those are your other computer networking, EMS type classrooms. There is an entrance canopy you can kind of see there that comes straight out from the entrance from the high school to the parking lot. And any questions about the exterior? All right, can we go to the next page, please? So what we've done is at the top of the page, we put a little blue kind of arrow, so it shows you where this view is. So if you're going to look at this later on down the road, I don't know if you're going to share the PDF or not, Bobby, but you can see that tells you where you're standing and kind of where you're looking. I just find a lot of times you get a bunch of renderings and you have no idea where they're at. So I wanted to add that key plan in for everyone, so if they look at it later. So what this is this is your student gallery. So you can see where it says Robeson Career and Technology Education Center. That's your digital wall. That's where we can display from the drafting and engineering class, or your graphics class, or really anybody who's doing a digital medium can display their work here. All around the cylinder and in this area is where we can have engine displays or things from carpentry or masonry, or brick wall they've built. But this is where everybody coming and going every day is going to pass by the student work. And I think that enthusiasm and seeing that creativity from the students is really going to be important. It's really going to just keep piquing the interest of all the students throughout. There's also that glass connector, so you can sort of see into the Science Center area. And then from the Science Center lobby, you can see out into the school. So we did want a visual connection. There's a door there, but really it's only for special events. It will be locked. So you do keep that security between the school and the public. But we did still want that visual connection. So we wanted to see the public, see into the student gallery, see the work that's going on, see the students doing stuff. And then the same thing with the students, seeing some of the work and displays happening in the Science Center. Can we go to the next page? So this essentially is turning around 180 degrees. Scroll down a little bit more. Thank you. Looking back at that main central commons area. So you can see the learning stair in the back there. It's really going to be kind of one of the main stairs for people to move between floors. It's where students can hang out, work on projects together. There's also be a lot of different types of seating here, again, for that collaborative learning environment. You can see on the left there, those are those glass vertical folding doors that lead to the classroom. So you would imagine, on days where there's not a lot of stuff going on in the shop, they could roll those doors up and have, that entire space be able to move their classroom out, and they're not stuck kind of just sitting, in the classroom. They can move out and utilize the rest of the building. What you're seeing on the ceiling is a wood ceiling with some skylights. We're also exposing the structure so you could see kind of the wide flange columns and beams. So we're going for a very contemporary aesthetic, but we heard early on with some of the inspiration, which we don't want this thing to look like an industrial warehouse, but some of that, being this is a technical school, exposing that and even showing the students, kind of what it takes to have a structure. So exposing some of that into the design, but keeping it very refined with wood ceilings and glass and skylights. Can we go to the next page, please? So this is inside the Culinary Arts Kitchen. So what you see here to the left is where all your main kitchen equipment will be. And then the different tables would be each student's working table. They've got a stand mixer and they'll have other cooking stuff, depending on the lesson plan. But what is great about this is if you actually look in the background, you see that there's glass walls back there, and that actually leads all the way across through the building. So again, the same way that we're doing it with the shops, the culinary, the same thing. You can see through the classroom and into the culinary and see people cooking, see the fires going on the grills. We really want to keep that connection in every single space if we can. And I think this is going to be an exciting space for students and students who aren't in culinary, just to kind of peek in and see what they're working on. Can we go to the next page? So this is upstairs. So if you're looking at the front of the building, there's sort of that white kind of rectangular box that's cantilevered out from the front of the building. This is the drafting and engineering classroom. You can see we've got some clerestory windows up top, some regular windows. So there'll be a lot of nice light coming into the space. It's a nice large space for the students to have to do their work. They can see all the way through in the background to the planetarium cylinder, which is going to be a really nice material, again, sort of inspire the students as they sit there and work. Go to the next page. So this is inside the Science Center lobby. So basically at your back would be the planetarium entrance, and then this is looking at the lobby and then into what is the Science Center in the background there. So when the public comes in and they're waiting for a show, they can also see into the Science Center. Or if you're in the Science Center, you can kind of see people waiting. We go to the last slide. So the last image we have here is the planetarium. And the way we've designed this space that you can see is, so this is a 40-foot diameter dome that is going to be suspended from structure above. And so what that does is it creates a circulation space around. So the two doors you're seeing in the background there, those are your light locks. And then we'll have red lights kind of within. And you circulate kind of around the space and then into your seat. You can see the projector in the middle of the space with the star ball. It's currently one of the options on how to get the projection up onto that dome. And then if you kind of look off to the left, there's what looks kind of like a linear alcove in the wall. We're currently looking at doing display cases in the wall that will display, I forget what it's called, but it's like, they're minerals. Yeah. Fluorescent minerals. Thank you. I was forgetting. Basically under UV light, they glow all sorts of amazing colors. And so the idea is the experience of moving into a planetarium is always kind of amazing, right? But usually you go in and it's just sort of the dome is lit kind of white and it just is what it is. Whereas here, what we want to do is as you enter in, there'd be this ring of fluorescent colors, almost like the star trail or a comet, trail kind of all these colors. And so it's almost wayfinding as well. So as you come in, you have these colors that bring you around and you can look at the minerals and learn about, some of the different rocks that are in the display cases and then go and sit down to your seat. So it's kind of tying in more than just what's going to be displayed in the planetarium, but also bringing in some of those other earth science elements to it, as well as just being an amazing display and easy wayfinding for the planetarium. So are there any questions about any of the renderings or images that you saw?
I've just got one. What's the seating capacity of the planetarium?
It's currently at 80.
80?
Yes.
Do I understand it that there will be a telescope for live viewing? That be a part of the construction or not?
No, not a telescope.
Yes.
Just going to say about the forest minerals. My father-in-law, when he passed away, bequeathed to us, the Science Center, Robeson County Planetarium, 45 boxes of some of the finest forest minerals in the world. We're talking a world-class collector here. So when those things are on display, not only are they really cool to look at, they're also integral to the 4th and 9th grade science standards for mineral identification. So they also have standards relevance. The other thing I was going to say about the planetarium is
There ain't kryptonite in there?
yes.
I'm good. I had to say that.
Your fluorescence, they take away from the illumination when you use your
turn those lights off and do the dome show, as soon as they're over.
Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was just one that I was gonna ask about those 6 large lights out there, the galaxies, or supernovas, or what? I was just curious if all that was just skill.
Absolutely not. That is not a real night sky by any stretch. No
No.
offense, but, you know, have
Yeah.
a face for some photographing.
So everybody good with this? Okay,
All right, thank you so much.
thank you. Uh, 2022-23 proposed capital outlay projects updates. Mr. Bobby, if you want the list run through these, you and Miss Erica, and on the paving for Long Branch, starting there, what? Oh, you got a quiz, I'm sorry, Miss. Well, there.
So, Mr. Chair, what we've done for the commit, for both committees is we went back to what was proposed last school year and just entered where we're at with those particular projects so we can keep up with them. So as you can see, like, for instance, Long Branch parking, we're currently in the design phase, but we're ready to bid those. So again, we just put a detail here about whether or not they're completed or in progress and what we believe the dollar amount eitherwise ended up for that particular project, or say, for instance, Purnell Sweat tennis courts, that original dollar amount was just a resurfacing. What we're looking at now, that new dollar amount there is adding 2 additional courts and also having to actually rebuild those from the ground up. We were not able to resurface those. So I guess if there are any questions about any of these particular projects, and Miss Erica may have something to add to what we had in place for this school year.
Right, as Mr. Bobby indicated, so you'll see what we initially came to the board with, and some of the projects are over, some of them are under, and we just wanted to show, and depending on the phase that they are in, we still may be waiting on more information or waiting for the bid process to actually occur so we can get more concrete numbers. But as you can see there, at this point, Shining Stars is a little under. The LED lighting for the high school gyms initially, that was 25,000. Once they got here, with the type of bulb they were offering, we had to upgrade the actual lighting fixture itself, so that's why that was more. But I'm sure everybody has seen what an improvement that has made in all of our gyms. And our middle schools were retrofitted at no cost to the district. And again, as Mr. Bobby indicated, once we changed the scope of work for Purnell Sweat, that drastically changed the price. And as you go through each one, if you have any individual questions, we can go over those and give as much information as everybody needs.
Where we at on the update with from our track, from our high school track?
So that's the very last thing on here. That's the last project that's pending from 2021, 2022, is the Fairmont track. And Mr. Jerome may be able to give more detailed information on where we are, but that is one of the last things that we have pending from that fiscal year.
So with the Fairmont track, it's currently in progress. They have taken everything up, asphalt, everything, putting new gravel down. Mr. Patterson and myself were actually over there this afternoon. They were pouring the long jump areas and all that good stuff. They're just waiting on the warm weather, which looks like it's here now, to start the paving. And once they get the paving done and put the lines down, it shouldn't be much longer. And what they did have to do with the old track, the starting area was in the opposite side of the track, which that was done wrong years ago. So we've now corrected that and brought it over to the home side. So it shouldn't be much longer on that track.
Thank you.
Couple of questions. Yeah, I know this IEA parking lot, we put this down probably 2 years ago with the idea of waiting for the college to come to our university because their land adjoins ours, that they were gonna pave a parking lot and we might could do something together. Now, I'm not sure where they are, but do we need to pursue, go ahead and trying to get ours done, or we wanna wait and see how far away they are to doing theirs?
Yeah, Bobby can check with the university,
Okay.
and if they can give us a timeline, we're not gonna pass up and wait. So we'll move forward, but Bobby check and then send some, thank you.
And a follow-up, let me go down to these things we got with the roof not started. Are those some of the projects with other ESSER money that will be starting maybe this summer or later on? I don't know if that's a Ms. Erica or Mr. Bobby question.
Roof is not ESSER, and some of
Okay.
these we discussed with Mr. Ernie just prior to the meeting, and it's just, we're gonna go ahead and get started on.
Okay, that's fine. And then let me ask Mr. Randy, these projects here on the last page where it's got 23, 24, that's for next year now. Are we needing,
We're gonna get to that.
we're gonna get
after.
that? Okay,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
We'll go ahead and get to that now on.
I'm gonna go back to the Pernell Sweat tennis courts. Jerome, update us on what's going on there in terms of drainage and
Come on up here. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Jonathan to come up here also. But once construction started on those tennis courts, the tennis courts are in such bad shape with the cracks in them from years. And every time it rained, the water just kept seeping into the cracks time and time again. So once they got ready to do construction, what they found out was all the soil up under the courts themselves, everything was just saturated. So now we're in the process of trying to figure out how to work that soil, what to do with that soil. And that's why I want Mr. Jonathan here. I know we're supposed to meet out there Thursday morning with the companies to walk it again and just try to figure out what the solution is going to be.
I'm gonna start off by saying again, we're in Robeson County and it's flat. And the problem we have is moving storm water. And I don't know when that track was put in or who did what, but I don't think anybody gave any consideration to stormwater drainage at the time. I just think they went out there, cleared off that site and set the track up. I went out there after they were having problems with the track. The trucks out there trying to get the material off, and they had to pull one or two trucks off of the track when they were taking off the asphalt material. And I took ECS, who is a soils company or testing company out of Fayetteville, had them meet me over there. And I sent some update to the school on this, where the guy was out there and they got a 3-foot auger rod that he could take his finger and push it straight down in the ground up on those tennis courts with that rubber membrane off the top of it. I'm not saying the entire track area may have to be undercut. What I'm saying is you've got some bad materials up under that track. And what Mr. Jerome alluded to is the guy who had the initial contract to do it, plus ECS is going to meet out there Thursday. And what they're going to do is do a proof roll. And that's more essentially just taking either a truck or a paver roller, you've seen them out there, and just roll on top of that soils to see what it does. It's dried out a little bit now, and just to see what it does so we can make an opinion or try to come up with a better idea of what it's going to take to fix that area. Now, in my report that I sent over to the school system a couple of weeks back, I more or less told them, said, look, the entire site out there really needs to be regraded such that water gets over to the channel that's behind the school and keeps that water from undermining your track system. During construction, that track's got to put up, or that court's got to handle a heck of a lot more load than it will once you get it built. But until you get it to that point, it's still got to be able to handle that load. So once it's built and you've only got foot traffic on it, it'll be okay. But getting to that point is what the problem is, because those heavy trucks have to roll over it as if you were just riding up and down the highway. And also in that report I send over, not only is that area in disarray, but the area behind where the bleachers are at, leading all the way over to where we're gonna put our new building at. All that grade, again, I don't know who did this, but all that grade was pushing not to the ditch, but back over to the buildings and to the site. So at some point, I would recommend all of that site out there be regraded and addressed. And I don't know what your budget's like for right now, but in the area where your long jump and whatnot was put at, it's 6 inches above the grade that's out there now. So all the water, as it runs off of the football field over to that area, it just sits and there's nowhere for it to go. And that bleeds right back over on into your tennis court area. It just saturates the ground and it just makes for a bad situation all around. So again, I got a couple of estimates and quotes, but grand scheme of things, what they're giving us, it doesn't mean anything until they're actually going to have to start excavating and dig up some materials to find out what we got and do some more testing.
Yeah, Mr. Jerome, while you up there, want to give us an update on the Red Springs tennis courts while you up there?
So the Red Springs tennis courts, we're currently trying to figure out where we want to place those courts. Originally, we talked about placing them at the new complex over by the church on the parking lot area. But after talking to LL&J, what we found out, the parking lot was designed for the water flow to run that way when it rained. And with all those cars parking out there, whenever cars park, obviously they drop antifreeze, they drop oil on the asphalt. So whenever it rains, water runs that way. So we didn't want the oil and the antifreeze running onto the tennis courts. So that wouldn't be a good place at all. The second option was to go back over to the school and put them right back where they're at, which would only give them 3 courts. A third option we looked at was a space inside the old track area. So that's the option we're looking at right now. We just haven't came to a conclusion to where they need to be. If you put them back right where they're at in the old place, again, it's only going to give them 3 courts. And when they host tennis matches, they'll be out there till 9, 10 o'clock at night trying to finish a tennis match.
It's already on. I'm good. I also wanted to mention, if I could, you'll notice the 3 tennis courts on there, Red Springs High, Purnell, and then the track, those 2 tennis courts, and then the track at Fairmont. Combined, we thought we'd get much better pricing for those 3 projects than we did. We thought we'd be able to do all 3 of those, and 2 of them came in, the Purnell and the Fairmont track came in higher than what we thought we could do all 3 projects. So we're trying to balance that out as well.
Just one comment with those options Mr. Jerome gave. For lack of a better way, I don't think the 3-court option at Red Springs is an option. We got to look at being at the new place or going inside the old football field. Because like you said, and folks, if you hadn't seen it, where those 3 courts are, if you tear them up, you can't build but 3 more. And 3 courts is just not enough to have a tennis match. So whenever we get to finding money or what we have to do, we do need to look to me, build it at the new complex or put it inside that track that's there. But to do it where with tennis, if we're building something, we need to try to do it where they can get 6 courts at any school.
Okay. Yeah, we're moving forward to what we're proposing for the 23-24 school year. And we're going to start with the kind of little more complicated one, the modular units at St. Paul's High School. So as we've been discussing this project, we are looking at 8 classrooms with modular technologies and financing that for a 5-year period. The finance of the buildings will not include any of the brick underpinning, decks, ramps, et cetera, and all that is listed on that page. And I put approximately 1.2 million because some of those numbers were fluid. The actual cost is a little over 1.3. So it's 1,343,884. We got those numbers, so that's why I have approximately 1.2 there, but the actual cost as it stands now would be around 1,343,884. And the 5-year lease option is at a 10% interest rate. So initially we discussed leasing it at the beginning and then kind of looking to see where we are on other projects and what our cash flow situation looks like. And it may be that we can pay it off after that first year. So we would eliminate the need for a 4-year lease option. We would also have to, because it's a continuing capital outlay project, get a resolution approved from the county commissioners to move forward with that over multi-years.
Erica, the number is what, 8, 9?
I'm sorry.
I think the number is 1,893,884. I'm sorry, 1,393,884 instead of 1,343.
Well, the difference is the 50%, $50,000 down payment. So it's 751, 183, and then we would subtract the $50,000 down payment.
So that's the financed amount.
Right, the 701 minus the 50,000 is the financed amount. That's correct.
Okay.
And the underpinning and the decks and the metal roof are estimates. So if we would say 1.4, that should cover us as far as budgeting purposes.
Where do we stand with the St. Paul's High and the Purnell Swift athletic classrooms?
We're in the design phase that's been submitted to DPI. Mr. Bobby has had a conversation with the architect or engineer there, and we should be getting approval back on that. We're waiting on that. Like that should be happening within the next week, 2 weeks. I think Mr. Bobby wants to add something to that.
Mr. Chair, if I may, let me ask attorney to talk with the board in terms of the 8 additional classrooms at St. Paul and working with the town of St. Paul.
For the middle school units or the high school units? Okay, for the high school units, we would need to work with both the county and the town on that, and try to get the approval for the continuing contract for capital outlay from the county because it's a multi-year investment, and we need their commitment on the future years of funding. And for the town, we'd have to work with them on the permits, the building permits, and getting a certificate of occupancy. There really is no alternative to doing it that way with the numbers that you've got going in, other than alternatives that would probably be a whole lot less palatable than the modular units, which are stick-built modular units. They're not like mobile homes. They're
Correct.
They're good solid units. They're not new construction. They're not new buildings for a school, but your alternatives are utilizing spaces that are not designed as classrooms to be classrooms, such as having classrooms in the cafeterias or in the cafeteria or in the gym or at the end of hallways. And those are not conducive to learning, that you don't want to be doing that. Another alternative would be to bus students to other high schools, which I don't think is in the cards. And besides, the closest other high schools are already at capacity. You could go to, more drastic alternatives, such as having the 9th grade enter high school remotely and have them do remote learning, which I don't think anybody's going to be happy with. Not a good high school experience. Or you could go to a split schedule where you might have juniors and seniors come in at 7 a.m. and leave at 1, and have freshmen and sophomores come in at 10 a.m. and leave at 4, something along those lines. So those are the alternatives the only real alternatives that you have to the modular units at this point.
Ms. Erica, I got confused with those figures. Tell me again, we're looking at the brick and the deck and the metal roof. That's there. Now, what was the other figures when you got, the million gets me nervous, not with schools, just period.
Okay.
Give me those figures.
So we started with the cost of the 8 modular classrooms is $751,183. 50% of $50,000 would be required for us to put down upfront. So then we would be financing the 701,183 at a rate of 10% annually. And that breaks down to, that adds an additional, subtract that out. That adds an additional 192,701 if we complete the whole 5 years, which we don't plan to do.
Right.
But that's where, so we're at 893, 884.20 plus the 50,000 we put down. Then you add in the amounts for the 120 for the underpinning,
Okay.
the 250 for the deck, and the 80 for the metal roof, and that gets us to the 1,393,884. That's if we do if we finance the whole 5 years. If we don't, we'd have some savings on the interest payments that would drop that down.
And that's for 8 units, right?
5.
5
years.
units. I guess.
5 years. Yes, 5.
Erica, and again, early payoff, there's not a penalty.
There's no penalty for early payoff of the financed portion.
Mr. Randy, a follow-up to that, then we definitely need the classrooms there. That's what everybody's saying. The classrooms, we got to have something some way. And Ms. Erica, with the financing, we can handle the financing. It can be done, whatever needs to be done as far as we've got the money and can do what you were suggesting.
Yes. We
Okay.
just need, as Mr. Swartz indicated, we'll have
The
to,
permits
we
and
wanted
stuff.
to get the board's approval first, and then we'll move forward with the necessary meetings with the county manager and the county commissioners, because it does require their approval, and also the town of St. Paul's for permitting and
Well,
occupancy.
Speaking for me, classrooms in a end of a hallway or a gym is it's just not acceptable. Not when we can do something to avoid that from happening.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Bobby, what are our projections in terms of for the next 2 years at St. Paul incoming freshman class?
So based upon what our projections are for next school year, St. Paul's High will pick up an additional 108 students, which would approximately put them at 1220. Last school year, this school year, I'm sorry, second month PMR, they were at 1148. Their current capacity is only with three mobile units that they have on campus now, is 1,084 students. So they're going to add at least 100 this year and probably that, if not more, next school year. So they're looking at an enrollment next school year that probably exceed, not next school year 23, 24, but 24, 25 to exceed at least 1,300 students. And so with these 8 additional classrooms, that would give us the opportunity to house at least 240 students. And that would be, of course, 30 students in each classroom.
I know at one time there was some discussion about communication with the town of Red Springs when this, St. Paul's, when this discussion first started. Has all that been ironed out and all the proper protocols in place, or is that still ongoing?
No, nothing's been ironed out.
Sir?
It has not been ironed out.
Okay. It will be.
It needs to be worked on.
That's what we're indicating, Mr. Gentry. If we get the approval of the board, we would move forward with both the meetings with the county commissioners and the town of St. Paul's.
Eight classrooms and financed for 5 years.
Yes, I was going to reiterate that. It's 8 mobile classrooms financed for a 5-year period. I apologize. It's 8 classrooms over a 5-year period. Correct. Yes, 10%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. She needs to talk about the shining stars.
Shining stars, Miss Erica. quickly.
Okay. Yes, sir. As we did phase 1 of Shining Stars, which was public schools only in the entire building, it retrofitted the other half of the building to include new classrooms, observation areas, office space. The next phase is the last part of construction there is to give Shining Stars their own cafeteria. So the idea is the students there would get accustomed to going back and forth and eating in a cafeteria setting, so they would be ready once they go to their prospective elementary schools. So the space there, we're estimating cost of about $628 initially. We're going to have that bid. The other part, up to $700, would include, of course, the equipment needed there, tables for the children, and so forth. So phase 2 is specific to cafeteria expansion at the Lumberton Shining Stars site, and we estimate a cost of $700,000.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Erica, we met yesterday, had a conversation. Can you share our projected numbers? Because part of this ongoing conversation was that we had enough kids on a waiting list to move forward with this project, and the project will be self-supporting in a couple of years. Yes.
That's correct. So initially, the Lumberton site has 82 students. With the additional space that the classrooms and the addition presented, they can add 68 for a total projected cost of 150 students. So along with that comes an increase in, depending on the child and their needs, depending on the funding sources, so they could apply for more NC pre-K slots. as well as additional developmental day funds if those are students that require those types of needs. So it was an additional close to $1.4 million in funding that Shining Stars could request that would help support, of course, increased staff if we're building an entire cafeteria, and then the teachers and the TAs for the new part of the building.
And again, the requirement is that be a 5-star facility
Correct.
before we can apply. So the project has to be completed.
That's
before we
correct.
can
The
apply.
project has to be completed. The staff has to at least be processed through our hiring procedures. So we're looking, with a deadline of around August of next school year.
So action items that you're gonna need to come before the board on both of them are the modular units at St. Paul's
Correct,
and the kitchen renovation at Shining Stars.
correct.
So do we need to vote on this as a?
Yes.
And the
So,
Oxendine, I'm sorry, the drop ceilings and LED lights at Oxendine Elementary.
How much is that?
I don't know if we have a cost yet.
You don't have it?
We don't have that cost available.
You
yet.
working on it
We're
though,
working on
right?
that, yes,
Okay.
sir. If we have that by the board
Yeah.
meeting,
Yeah,
okay.
Amazing, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ernie, can you give us your best guess on what that cost would be? I think it's, how many classrooms for the drop ceiling at Oxendine Elementary?
So we'll have some numbers by the board meeting, with some indicators there for the drop ceiling and
That's
the
good.
LED lights.
okay. Kip, I'm sorry, Mr. Henry.
Was Oxendine School part of the grant project with the LED lighting, Mr. Bobby?
I would have to go back and look at my book. I think we ended up in elementary and middle schools, we were able to do all of them except for, I think, 6 to 8 sites. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but I could get you that information. But remember, that was just in all the gyms. They did not do any other facilities on site.
And being that this is joint, I need a motion and a second to carry this before the board at the next business meeting. And I'm just doing it inclusive because all of us served there. You got something, Mr. Creek?
Real quick, and I'll give the motion if I need to, but if they can get us some prices on that at Oxendine, because I've been there and seen those classrooms. And if you've seen classrooms that don't have the drop ceiling and have this metal and wiring exposed, and that's what they have there. It's just because of the school, the age, it's just never had drop ceilings in these 6 classrooms. So if we can get some prices, I'm sure it's something we would definitely try to do. But now you need a motion for,
Well, for the modular units at St. Paul's and the kitchen renovations for the Shining Star Phase 2. Yeah, at around 700,000 on that Shining Stars.
Mhm.
And then we already have, I just need a motion and a second and everybody to vote on it. You got the motion, Mr. Craig? Vontae, you seconded it? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. And that'll be in our board packet for, as an action item.
Yes, sir.
Vontae's made a motion to adjourn. Trey seconded. All those in favor say aye. Thank you very much.